A very good morning to all of you. So we are back again with the next session of conflict management. So in the last session of conflict management, we have discussed about types of conflicts. Today we will be discussing about first the source, how the conflict arises, what are the sources of conflict in the organization. Then we'll be discussing about three main types of conflicts, that is on basis of task, relationship, and value. We'll be discussing about these three types of conflicts, but before that, we'll be discussing about what are the sources of conflict, sources of workplace conflict. Why the conflict arise at workplace? What do you think? What are the sources of conflict at workplace? Why conflict arise at workplace? Why? Might be some reason for the conflicts arising at workplace. Okay, so we'll be discussing about them one by one. Let's check. Sources of workplace conflict. Conflict occurs when there is a perception of incompatible interests between workplace participants. Incompatible interests. The interests are in matching. There is a perception that the workplace interest and workplace participant interest is different. So that perception of incompatible interest between workplace participation is one of the reasons for having conflict in workplace. It distinguished from dispute. Disputes are merely a byproduct of conflict. Many people think that the dispute and conflict are one and the same thing, but no. Disputes are different from conflicts. We'll just wait for 1 minute. A few students are trying to join. Let them join, we'll continue. Just wait for 1 minute. Okay, we'll start. Yeah. So here it says disputes are different from the conflict. These disputes are just the byproduct of the conflict. When the conflict arises, then in that situation, there are some points where dispute also becomes a part of that conflict. Typical dispute comes in the form of formal court cases, grievances, arguments, threats, and counter threats, etc. Conflict can exist without dispute, but dispute do not exist without conflict. Byproduct means it comes out due to conflict only. So if there is a dispute usually takes a very drastic step. It results in cases, grievances, arguments, threats, counter threats, etc. All these things comes under dispute, but in conflict, these things doesn't come. Conflict can exist without having any kind of dispute, but dispute cannot exist, cannot start, cannot come if there is no conflict. So for dispute, conflict has to be there, and it is there. That's why it changes to dispute. In conflict, one more thing, they don't have to go with any, usually when it's only the conflict, it is resolved within the team. They do not go for any kind of formal court cases or grievances, arguments. All these things are not there in conflict. Conflict exists at every workplace without turning into dispute. Make sure you cannot avoid conflicts when different individuals are working together, different people are working together. Conflict becomes the internal part of the organization, of the workplace. Even if you are going to take a small example of our home or of your college, you'll see the conflicts keep on arising within the students. Even conflicts arise between the management, teachers. So that is okay. It is the internal part. When you have different people belonging from different culture, they have different behavior, they have different perception. So conflict is natural. That is going to be the part where we have different individuals. We all hear that thing that when there are two different individuals, the arguments, the space for conflicts, all these things will happen. Same way, at every workplace, within every team, the conflict occurs. But rarely it is changed to dispute. The conflict occurs. It is solved by the maturity, the level of maturity in which the people are there. Either with the help of leader, the things get solved and the results are out. So here it hardly, rarely changes to dispute. Dispute is something very big. Now, what are the sources? First source is interpersonal conflict. Interpersonal conflict means office policies, gossips, humors, language, personality style often clashes, creating a great deal of conflict in workplace. The clash which we see between all these things is one of the reason for having conflict at workplace. People keep on spreading rumors. People keep on gossiping on the things which actually or really wouldn't have existed. So these are all of the things which create conflict. And we all know that workplace, at every workplace, the politics takes place. Politics is there everywhere. So it is again one of the reasons for conflict to enter in the workplace. When there is conflicts, that informal communication, that is gossips, rumors, different style, different personality, different languages, all these things lead to conflict in workplace. But these things are small. These all conflicts can be resolved if you take proper and timely measures, and if you set some ground rules. For example, for language, if there is a language problem, language conflict, you can have you can set some basic ground rules that this is the language which we are going to use. If gossips and rumors are there, you can set ground rules that these gossips and rumors are only gossip and rumors. Before believing that, before trusting them, have the clarification, check their validity, check whether they exist or not. Office politics, the office politics, you can stop by making some rules where it doesn't allow these politics, gossips to enter, to make people enter into conflicts. So if you have good rules, policies, you can avoid this interpersonal conflict. There are strong ethnoculture and racial sources of conflict as well as gender conflict. One of the biggest problem which is still there in the organization, that is gender conflict. The gender conflict is always an internal part of the organization. Though the organization, they have made some specific rules for avoiding these type of conflict, but still it exists. So there are strong ethnoculture and racial sources of conflict as well as gender conflict, due to which interpersonal conflict arises. People often bring their stress from home into office, leading to further conflict. When we are stressed at office and if we go home, we behave very maturely. We shout, we get angry, we get frustrated on very small things. Same happen when you bring your home stress to the office. When you bring that and you are in a powerful position, you take out that stress within your team or on other peer group, your subordinates, your followers, and this lead to conflict. You should mature, you should behave maturely, understanding that the work related problem should not go home and home related stress should not enter into the organization. This type of conflict only you can stop. No one can stop this type of conflict until and unless you doesn't have control on your emotions, you doesn't have control, and you doesn't act maturely, like where to speak what. You should know if it is something related to your personal life, something related to your home. What's the point of taking out that stress within the organization, on your peers, on your subordinates? You are the right person to deal with this and come out of this conflict. You can stop this conflict if you act maturely. Make it your habit that home stress is never going to reach office and office stress is never going to come along with me to my home to avoid these conflicts. The strong drive of work-related achievement in some participants can clash with participants who do not emphasize work-related success in their life. A group of 5 people working together on a project. So for 3, the work-related achievement is very important. They just finish up their work before time. They give their best because they want to achieve something in their life. They are goal-oriented person. But for some participants, that work-related success doesn't matter. They do not put emphasis on that work-related success. Again, the conflict arises. Conflict as in because of them, the achievement, their result is getting decreased or they are getting slower, they are unable to meet the deadline. So they won't be ready to accept this because they are the person who have put their full emphasis, given their 100% to get the work done on time. So they do not accept this. So it's better to have some ground rule by the team, providing deadline to each and every member of the team to get the work done on time. By this, you can avoid this conflict within the team. Next comes this organizational source of conflict. Conflict coming from the organizational sources. That is a hierarchy. If some conflicts are left unsolved, resolved, they are not being resolved, then this organizational source of conflict arises. Difference in supervisory style between departments can cause the conflict. Now, they are very superior and the style of working of each superior is different. So maybe a person might like the style the other one is using and he might not be happy with his immediate supervisor. So there the conflict arises between the supervisor and the employee, that why he cannot give us that liberty. For example, there are 2 supervisors. First supervisor name is Mr. Ahiyad. Second supervisor name is Mr. Praveen. So Mr. Ahiyad and Mr. Praveen, they both have a team of 10 people, team of 10 employees working under them each. Now, Mr. Ahiyad is a person who wants their staff to reach office at 9. He doesn't give work from home option. He is a person who who have 3 meetings every day with the team to take the regular update. He is that type of person. So out of 10, 5 people are happy that yes, with this, they are able to track the progress. But Mr. Praveen is a bit different. His style of working is, very different. He gives open space. He allows the team to work in their own way. He allows them to take work from home if they want to take work from home just once in a week. He has set some ground rules, like once in a week they can come late, like 1 or 1.5 hour late. They can go for work from home if they require once in a week or once in a month. So now both the leaders, both the supervisors, Mr. Iyer and Mr. Praveen, have their own style of working. And few people love the way Iyer is working, and few love the way Mr. Praveen is working. And this creates a conflict amongst superior and the peer. Those who are not happy with their superior's working style, they'll have conflict with that person. So make sure there is some similarity between the styles you are using. There shouldn't be anything by which people or the employees think our team is getting more benefit than us. Some ground rules should be there even for the supervisor's way style of working. Work style clashes, seniority, juniority, and pay equity conflict. These conflicts are natural, like the senior, I'm senior, you are juniors. These style clashes, seniority, juniority complex is always there in all the organization. Next is conflict can arise over resource allocation, the distribution of duties, workloads, benefits, different level of tolerance for risk taking, and varying views on accountability. So conflict in the organization can arise over resource allocation. First is resource allocation. If the people will think that few peoples are always benefited with the resource, whenever they start with a new project, they have been allocated all the resources, but we doesn't get the resources every time. We have to wait, we have to ask them, we have to keep taking the follow-up to get the required resources for us. Here, if this inequality is seen, conflict will arise. People will not see what's the reason why resources available to them. There might be some reason, but still this will lead to conflict. Second is the distribution of duties. If there is unequal distribution of duties, again conflict will arise. Workload and benefits. If a person will see that other are getting more liberty, the workload which I'm doing, the work which I'm doing is more than what others are doing, he will have conflict. Who wants to work more than others? There is always a comparison with the peer group that yes, I'm working for 8 hours, he's working for 5 hours. Why? That question will arise and that will lead to conflict. So make sure that the workload is evenly distributed. Different level of tolerance of risk taking and varying views on accountability. All these things lead to organizational conflict. These are the sources by which the organizational conflict arises. Second is trend and change. Technological change can cause conflicts as changing work methodologies. Technology keep on changing, we keep on upgrading ourselves, we keep on upgrading the system, upgrading the technology, and it can lead to lot of conflicts if the technology is not friendly. If people are finding it difficult, they'll resist to change. They won't switch to the new technology. They won't be happy working in that new technology. This changing work methodology can be one of the reasons for conflict, that is under trend and change. But it is something which is required. So to avoid this conflict, you can provide them good training about the upgradation, about the changing methodology, changing work methodology, which we are going to use. Give them some time, give them a helping hand to solve their problem for initial time, till the time they're just learning to work, to be familiar with all those things. Giving them the time, allowing them to understand and to be familiar with the technology, with the change, can avoid the conflict of trend change. Constant reorganization leading to further stress and conflict. Now, if in an organization there is continuous reorganization, people are being shuffled from one designation to another, the work pattern is changing, The work they were doing is continuously changing. They are being shuffled from one area to other area. Like person working in sales is being shifted to management. Person working in production is shifted to sales. So these continuous changes in the organization, changing the person from one team to another, can be another reason of stress and conflict. The reorganization in the organization shouldn't be very frequent. The more changes and the more recent the change, the more likely there will be significant conflict. If you have bought some changes, make that change stagnant, make that change at least stay there for a while. Don't continuously keep on changes, bringing the changes in the organization, in the way of working, in the way of hierarchy, changing the hierarchy, changing the team. Don't get those things very frequent. Make them permanent. If you have bought some changes, at least stay there with the changes for some time. Allow people to adjust with the changes. Provide them the training if required. Explain them everything. Give them a supporting hand that in case of doubt, in case of any problem, you can approach us. So the more change and the more recent change, the more likely there will be significant conflict. Next are the external factors. Till now we have studied organizational factor, then interpersonal factor, then the changes and the trend. Now the last comes is external factor. External factors means economic pressure are caused by recession, changing market, domestic and foreign competition, and the effect of free trade between countries. In the organization, there are many things which are affected by the external factor, by the changes in the external factor. For example, the effect of free trade can bring lot of changes in the workplace. That it might increase the cost. So there you might have conflict with the external factors, due to external factors or with the external factors. Why? There is sudden change of these policies. Domestic and foreign competition. If more of foreign things, foreign brands are being opened in India, so there is a tough competition. So there might be conflict. Why that is happening? Why we are not promoting the domestic products? The market changes, the changes which are being bought in the market, or the recession. These all are the external factors. They are not within the organization. They are outside the organization. But these factors affect the working of the organization. So to avoid these, we need to be ready. We need to be ready with the changing, because these things are not in our hand. If these changes are bought, then they will come. You cannot, I, or the organization, no one can stop these changes to come. Conflict arises when clients, suppliers, affecting customer service and delivery of goods. The clients are affected, supplies are affected, which is affecting the customer service and delivery of the good. Then also the conflict will arise. A change in government can have a tremendous impact. With the change in government, there are a lot of changes which are brought within the organization. You need to understand how to avoid those changes. Companies or government departments that have constant relationship with outside organization will find this to be a major source of conflict for workplace participants. Because government keep on change. If government change, there are a lot of things, lot of policies which will also change. So being a company, again, there are a lot of conflicts which arises due to external factors. Now with this, we have finished with the sources. What are the sources which bring conflict within the organization? Now we'll quickly see about the types of conflicts. Now, if we talk about types of conflict, We have first type as involvement. On basis of involvement, many conflict come. Now, on basis of involvement, it can be interpersonal, intrapersonal, and organizational. Now, intrapersonal is something which you have, the conflict which you have with yourself only. That is the intrapersonal conflict. Interpersonal conflict is divided into two different things, that is intergroup or intragroup. That is, interpersonal conflict can be within the group or it can be with other external group. Next comes is organizational conflict. Now, organizational conflict can again be inter-organizational conflict that occur between two or more organizations. It can be intra-organizational conflict that is occurring within the organization. So, on basis of involvement, this is the first type of conflict. On basis of scope, there can be two types of conflict, that is substantive and effective. Substantive conflict may be over the fact of situation or the method or means of achieving a solution. That can be substantive. Effective conflicts deals with interpersonal or incompatibilities or the emotion and frustration between the parties, because it is effective there. Substance, you are giving out something, it's on that. Effective is when you are getting affected by that. So on basis of scope, there are two types of conflict, that is conflict may be substantive and effective. Substantive conflict may be over the fact of situation, the method or means of achieving a solution to the problem, and or goals and values. It can be on any one of these. Effective conflict deals with interpersonal relationship, incompatibilities, and center of emotion and frustration between parties. Now, conflict can include disagreement about factors such as meeting date, time, individual task, assignments. So these looks very small, but still conflict arise. But these conflicts, the conflicts on meeting dates, assignments, group organization, leadership, method of resolving disagreement, doesn't lead to dispute. They are conflict, they get resolved, and it doesn't convert to disputes. Next is on basis of result. On basis of the results, what you are getting. Conflict can be constructive or destructive, creating or restricting, positive or negative. It can be any one of the following. It can be either constructing something, or destroying something. It is either creating something or restricting something. It can be positive as well as negative. Destructive conflicts are always known as dysfunctional conflicts because such conflict prevent a group from attaining the goal. So this conflict is something which is preventing a group of people to attain their goal, to achieve their goal. Constructive conflict are known as functional conflict because they support the group goals and help in improving performance. So there are two. One is stopping you from doing that. Other is making you and helping you in improving the performances. Next comes is on basis of sharing of by group. So conflict may be distributive or integrative. Distributive conflict is approached as a distribution of fixed amount of positive outcome or resources where one side will end up winning and the other side losing, even if they do win some consciousness. Here it is always winning and losing situation for one of the parties. They are not ready to work together and find a middle way. They just want to win the situation. Even if the other is losing, they are least bothered about that. That is distributive conflict. In this second conflict on basis of sharing comes integrative conflict, in which they are okay to discuss, to come together They're concerned about the need of both the groups. So here, integrative conflict is a chance to integrate the need and concern of both groups and make the best outcome possible. They just work on getting the best outcome possible for the situation. They doesn't prefer, they doesn't they're not fighting for winning or losing, that we want to win or other has to lose. They are fighting, they are working together to find the best possible situation. For example, if we talk about a meeting room which is being required by two different groups, now in distributive conflict, they'll fight over that. Both the parties are not ready to accept. They'll say we want the room. They will not even negotiate with the time. Like for example, they can go like, okay, we'll take the room first, we'll finish it off in 1 hour and you can take it in next 1 hour. They're not ready to find a middle path. They will just want to book that room. They want to start the meeting in that room without thinking that who's at a very urgent need for that meeting room. They're not considering that. But in integrative, they'll sit together, they'll discuss among themselves, both the groups will discuss like who needs that meeting room urgently, whose meeting is on priority, they'll discuss, they'll find the best possible solution and they will work together. That is a basis of sharing by group. Next is on the basis of strategy, competitive and cooperative. We have two strategies. One is competitive and one is cooperative. Competitive strategy, competitive strategy is similar to distributive work. So here competitive strategy means they just want to win the fight or argument, even if the winning cost more and cause more pain than not fighting at all. But for them, it is like we just want to win. Their desire to win the fight and argument is their priority. That is on top. They're not ready to lose that thing, even if winning is going to cost them more and it is going to cause more pain than not fighting. If they have this option of not fighting, but still they'll go with the fighting only, that is competitive. A competition, as the word says, competitive competition is there to win that situation. Second is a cooperative approach, aligns with the process of interest-based or integrative bargaining, which leads to parties to seek win-win situation. Under this approach, they will find a best path where both the groups, both the parties are into win-win situation. They're not working to make other party lose or to win the entire situation. Winning and losing is not their motive. Their motive is to work with cooperation with each other and finding a middle and the best solution where both the parties end up winning the situation. In cooperative situation, the goals are linked that everybody shrinks or swims. Either you are shrinking or swimming together, while in competitive situation, if one swims, the other must sink. So here cooperative is the best strategy which you can use, that is shrink and swim. Either both of you will shrink together or you will swim together. Then the competitive, where one has to swim, the other must shrink. The last is on basis of rights and interest. Conflicts of right means where people are granted certain rights by law or by contract or by previous agreement or by established practice. So they have got some rights. Either the law has given them, their contract has given them, their agreement has given them those rights. So that is conflict over right. If they have those rights, if their people are going against them, they can have the conflict. But second comes is conflict of interest, which means where a person or a group demands certain privileges, but there are no law or right of right in existence. No rule, no law, nothing give them that privilege to exercise those rights, to exercise those things. But still, it's just coming out of their interest. So they want that right, they want that privilege. So such a dispute can be settled only through negotiation or collective bargaining. So to settle this dispute, either you have to negotiate or you have to bargain with the other party to solve those disputes. These right of interest disputes are usually seen in the production department where the laborers go on strike and they come back either by negotiation or collective bargaining. So this conflict of interest is usually seen in production manufacturing units. So with this, we have finished the categorization, the types of conflicts. Now there are three broad types of conflicts which we are going to discuss in the next session. Let's quickly check. There are task conflict, the relationship conflict, and value conflict. So these three are major different types of conflicts. We'll be studying about these three conflicts in the next session, and what are these conflicts and how to resolve these conflicts. You know, being a leader, you just need not to know the types of things, but you should also know how you are going to solve those things. So we are going to read, we are going to understand these three conflicts. Along with that, we will also focus on understanding how we can solve these three types of conflicts by taking what measures we can solve this conflict, because conflicts, you cannot avoid conflicts in the organization. If there is a group of people, conflicts are going to arise in the organization by some or other sources. So it's on you that how you manage those conflicts. That's why we say that leader is a person who should know how to solve the conflicts, because he's the right person to identify the conflicts, he's the right person to solve the conflicts, he's the right person to set some ground rules to avoid the conflicts. Because a conflicting team cannot give you best and better results if conflicts are left unresolved for a longer duration, then that might turn to dispute within the organization or with the organization or with other person. So make sure you doesn't allow these conflicts to change to dispute. As soon as you recognize the conflict, as soon as you get to know that there is some conflict going on within the organization, take the necessary steps. And there are few things on which we know the conflicts are going to arise. So it is better to identify those things and always be ready with the solution. Like if these things arises, how we are going to solve those conflicts. So with this, we have finished today's session of conflict management. If you have any doubts, you can ask. Okay, if you don't have if you don't have any doubts, so we are done with the session. We'll see you at 2:30 with the next session lined up for the day. That is virtual team building, anger management, and motivation. We'll be having all these three sessions starting at 2:30. Bye-bye. Take care.